Maurice Healy, the CEO of Glantus Holdings. Glantus are a global supplier of automated accounts payable. Accounting software might sound a bit dry, but not when it's Maurice telling the story. Glantus IPO'd and raised 10 million in a placing and a further 4 million in May, and have a market cap of 33 million pounds today. They cover EMEA from London, and the States get covered by San Jose. The clients are typically global as in very, very large enterprise businesses, multinationals and the like, with a degree of complexity in their accounting systems, with many suppliers. Growth was expected to come organically and through acquisition. And here's the man himself, Maurice Healy, to tell us all about it.
Okay, Donald, I'll run through there are a few slides here, but I won't spend a lot of time on many of them. Before I go on, just to give you a couple of the headlines. First of all, we're an Irish-headquartered company. We're headquartered in Dublin. Our operation, as you said, we have two operation centers, London for EMEA and San Jose for the US. Our revenues to the end of last year were €8.5 million. Before the IPO, we were 85% owned by management. Post the IPO, we're 55% owned by management. We sell our own product, it's all our own IP, and 89% of our revenues are recurring. So that's the headline. We're a tech stock, but we're a very stable tech stock. You spoke that we work in the area of accounts payable, and you know, accounts payable can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. We work with the accounts payable departments of large organizations, large enterprises, global enterprises, and we define our market when we're looking at qualifying customers. We just ask two questions: what is your spend, and how many suppliers do you have? We tend to work with companies with a spend greater than 500 million sterling, and they tend to have suppliers in anything from 4,000 suppliers up to 120,000 suppliers. And we work with these organizations because no matter how sophisticated their ERP system is, they have leakage. They have difficulty getting control of their supplier ecosystem, and they lose a lot of money in terms of duplicate payments, credits not processed, contracts not being complied with. So lots of different areas. And the reason this is happening is that the organizations we deal with have multiple regions, multiple divisions, ERP systems, instances of ERP systems. And a lot of them have grown by acquisition. And so they have multiple companies, even within regions. So the bigger they get, the more complex the whole area of accounts payable becomes for these organizations. And because they can have a supplier and multiple instances on multiple systems, then credit notes are not processed properly, payments can be duplicated. And as I said, the bigger they get and the more geographically spread they get, then you've got situations where contracts that they've made a global agreement with in London are not being complied with in Africa or in Australia. And so we step in and we created and developed our own IP. It's the Glantus platform. And we have three modules to it effectively. The first is the discovery. We talk about discovery and recovery. So we sit in the cloud above all of their systems, and we extract data from those systems, all their AP data, and we bring it to one place and we make it manageable. And we look for anomalies. So you have a situation where they've received statements, or clients have received those statements, and as I said, it could be anything from 4,000 to 120,000 statements, in some cases multiple statements from the same supplier, and we check it against what's on their system, and that's where we find the anomalies. So the first thing we do with them is we recover lost working capital. So it's an instant return on investment. The second thing we do is we automate the processes. Our system is real-time in the cloud. So we basically have a button on whether it's the CFO, the head of shared services, whoever it might be within the organization who heads up that AP function. They can design their own reports, but they can run a report and find these anomalies. So that automation prevents the kind of losses they had. And the final part is the analytics piece. And with the analytics, we're bringing all of their data on their suppliers together in one place. They can analyze it and they can use it to forecast. So from a customer's perspective, when we're in talking to a customer, they recognize these issues. They recognize the problems. So they know we can recover their working cap. So that's cash for them. We make their departments run more efficiently. So they save a lot of time and money in that. And then using the analytics piece, they finally have control of their ecosystem, and they can, it saves them a lot of money, but it also helps them predict things as they go forward. You've mentioned this, and I've mentioned it as well. I won't spend long on the ISO, but we run by standards. When we're dealing with these large organizations, we're often writing into their systems, extracting data from their systems. And you can't do that unless you have the highest certification. The most recent one, 27701, we're one of the few companies in the world to have that. It's a recent system around privacy, and that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue for our clients. The market is growing. So what fuels our market is economic activity. So we're right now in a situation where we're coming out of COVID, a lot of activity going on. The economies are growing, our customers are growing, and every time there's some M&A activity, well, that feeds our system. So we're now in EMEA and in the States, there's a lot more M&A activity, which means that all the problems I outlined earlier are compounded. So you've got a situation where multiple systems, multiple companies, the more M&A activity there is, the more there is a need for our solution. Briefly on this, a company, multinational, recently won 10 billion more spend, set up a shared services for their AP team, but they couldn't get control of all of their data. The color coded there, it's blurred out to protect the privacy of the company. But those color schemes, that's the number of systems they had. Every color represents a system. So they had no control over their master data, and they had no visibility of the contract or the performance of those contracts. So we've gone in, they've signed up with us. We're giving them a master data that they can work with. And throughout the process with them, we're doing the recovery, we'll be doing the automation, and we'll take them right through to the automation. But you can see the complexity that these companies are dealing with. We work in all sectors. That's the difference with the site I hadn't put up. We have large organizations, global organizations, the likes of Diageo, EasyJet, Interflora in the States. We've got Grainger, Graybar, multiple organizations in lots of different sectors that we work with. We have 3 areas of growth in the organization. So we have organic growth, and that has 2 forms. We have an existing customer base at the moment of 55 of these global organizations. And we have to take them on the journey. We're doing different things. Sometimes we're doing a purchase to payment automation system. Sometimes we're doing a recovery piece for them. One of the reasons that we raised money was to invest in the whole area of account management, because we didn't, a lot of what happened to us, a lot of the interest, I won't lie, took us a little bit by surprise. So we're playing a bit of catch up on the marketing and the account management. We've been hiring since we've done our IPO, and we have a lot of customers needing to talk to us, wanting to talk to us, these global organizations, and we'll be taking them on the journey and increasing our revenue per customer. And then the second part is the whole area of new logos and new brands. And again, our pipeline has grown considerably since the start of the year, particularly in the States, as we have, I suppose, through what we did in COVID, digital marketing, going to online events, the solution has gotten a bit of traction within our sector, and so we have a lot more inbound. So organic growth is going to be very strong. An area that's new to us, one I wasn't too sure of myself at the beginning of it, because I don't want to be a partner where I'm one of 12 widgets someone is selling. But we're now in a much stronger position with partners, because we have found the kind of partners we want. We're looking at partners where we are an integral part of their strategic growth. So a recent partnership that we've had would have been with the URA in Michigan, where they sell into our profile of customer, and they do recovery for them, but only in terms of utility payments. So they needed to expand their offering. We wanted access to their customer base. Perfect partnership. We're doing the same with other organizations, some who just do tax with these customers, and we go in and we expand it. And there are others who are OEMing the product. So partnership is another strong area of growth for us. And then the final part is that of acquisitions. We have a track record of doing acquisitions. We're good at acquisitions. We're good at finding them. We're good at negotiating them, and we're good at integrating them. And we have very strict criteria for doing acquisitions. We acquire companies that are, first of all, operating with our profile of customer. They have to be working in our sector with the finance function of these large organizations. We look for them to have good, strong recurring revenue, a good spread of customer base. And we also look at how we can add value, and I'll explain how we did that with one acquisition shortly. We have a good Glantus has a good track record of delivering strong financial growth. As I said, we're a tech company, and I'm speaking to you from the States at the minute, and over here, a tech company that is profitable with strong EBIT and strong growth is an unusual thing. One person over here said, "I'm not sure how to deal with you," but that's the stability of our business and the recurring revenue that we have generated over the past while. These are between the subscription and the transactional recurring revenues. That's been the growth and revenue profile that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. You've noticed I'm flying through these ones, mainly because the CFO normally does these slides. So, but here is an example of an acquisition we did last year, JPD in San Jose. It wasn't making any money. We paid $4.5 million for it, spread out. And within when we started to apply our automation to this business, we reduced the headcount from 65 to 35, and we took it from a loss-making situation to profitable to the tune of $1.5 million, $700,000 of which was recognized last year, but on a run rate basis will be $1.5 million. Another thing to point out is our R&D. We do continue to invest in R&D. We've put $2 million in over the last 2 to 3 years. We capitalize it over 3 years. Our annual budget in R&D is about $1 million. 500,000 of that is kind of upkeep and maintaining the systems and doing run-of-the-mill work on it, and 500 is a discretionary spend that we have in improving or putting in new features or adding to the platform. On the why invest, I won't even do that. I'm going to stop sharing here. I'll just give you 4 reasons why people should invest. First of all, I'll give you a reason you shouldn't invest. We're going to be a very busy company. If you don't like very busy companies, we're not the company for you. But the reason one should invest with us is that we're a tech stock, but we're a very stable tech stock with 89% of our revenues recurring. The market we're in is exciting, and it's a consolidating market, and it's very attractive to equity houses. There are a few gorillas in there. So we are very much building to scale, knowing what our market is over there. Third thing is we own our own IP, so we control everything ourselves. And finally, our growth strategy, apart from saying, you know, we have an amazing product, it's right for the market that we're in, it's a proven product, but we run our business, 55%, remember, is still owned by management, and we have a clear strategy of how we're going to grow shareholder value. Not just the growth, our margins will grow, but we're looking at the arbitrage between what we are acquiring companies for and our own organic growth, and what the US market in particular does. So we're acquiring companies anything from 5 to 7 times EBITDA or 2 times revenue. And when you reach scale and you get to scale, then over here in the States, it's like 18 to 30 times EBITDA and 5, 6, 7 times revenue. And the characteristics to get that are the fact that it's our own IP, the fact that we're profitable and in control, and every time we grow our recurring revenues, we grow our margins. And what we require now is to reach that scale. And that's what we're working on. We're very focused on it. We're very focused on the metrics of any acquisition we will do. But that is our intention. It's to hit those high multiples and valuations over the next couple of years through growth and through scale. And I leave it at that, Donald, and open it up to your questions or questions from anyone else. I think I stayed within the timelines.
I think you did. I think you were amazing, to be honest. You've got such an interesting business model. It really is absolutely fascinating, Maurice.
Thanks, Donald.
No, you're to be commended. It is so interesting. Let's go for some random Q&As, and then we'll get into my sensible ones. Random Q&A from Paul Sapsford. Do you take a percentage of the saving detected?
Yeah, so we have 2 types on the recovery. Some we do a fixed price with, and others we take a percentage. The percentage can vary with the scale of the company, anything from 15% of the recovery up to 30%. We average out about 17 or 18%.
So you've got some skin in the game when you save them money.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow, that's clever. Mark Joe, or that could be Joe Mark. It's difficult to know which way around. What percentage of revenue does your largest client contribute? Always a good question. And are revenues equally spread or tilted more to a few larger contracts? In other words, is there a degree of risk built into the business because you've only got a few really big clients? Yeah,
no, it's pretty well spread. I would say, and I can be corrected on this, but I'll only be out by a small margin if I am. The largest customer in our revenues for last year is probably between 300 or 400 grand. So that would be, you know, 3 or 4% would have been the largest customer last year. So there's a good spread across the customer base. Okay, what would your typical margin be on one of those larger customers? Is that a tricky one for you, or can you have a go at that? No, it's not a tricky one. I guess, first of all, from the point of view of being all our own IP, or every time we sell a subscription revenue, then our margin is about 90% on any subscriptions we sell. The recurring revenue is probably around 55 to 60% because we load in a lot of the costs in. I'm answering that question, Donald, by thinking of the commissions we pay our salespeople. So we typically pay on a gross margin of anything. So when it's a subscription-based thing, we pay on 90%, and when it's a transactional, we pay about 60%. And how would you hope to grow those margins, or is it pretty full already? No, not at all. Well, the 90%, the growth in that is all on the recurring revenue for the bottom line margin, the EBITDA margin. So over the last couple of years, we've gone something like 22% to 26% to 28%. We expect to be 30% or more on an ongoing basis at the moment, and we'll continue to grow that margin the more you grow the subscription revenue. The other thing that's happening, and when I give those margins that I gave on the transactional revenues, the technology, we've been developing the technology into that space. As I said, we went with the JPD acquisition from 65 staff to 35 staff. But actually the automation across the rest of that business, we've been developing over the past while. So the margins, even on the transactional stuff, more and more is being done by the technology. So the margins on that are growing all the time.
Great. Who do you see as your competitors in the marketplace? You've got Microsoft at one end, you've got account providers in the UK like Sage at the other. So where do you fit into all that? And are they all your competitors?
Or are they all our partners? It's an interesting one. So when you look at ERP vendors, and they all have a bit of what we do in their system. So they'll have some analytics, but they're fixed in their own ERP system. So they can't bring other products into that, other systems, you know, or it's a HR system, CRM system. And also, as I say, when they grow, they tend to have more than one type of system. And even when they have just, you know, put in a whole new, one of our customers 3 years ago put SAP across the entire group, and they still need our requirements to fix up those anomalies that I talked about. So we tend to have competitors in each of our areas. So there will be people who work on AP automation. There will be people who work on analytics or recovery. And the reason we win, if we're brought in on an analytics project, some AP guys, they ask us to come in and we'll be competing with other people who do analytics. Then we tend to win because when we're showing them what we're doing, we're bringing them in through the Glantus portal. So they're seeing the other products and we're talking with them saying, this is what we do in the analytics. And by the way, this is what we do in recovery and this is what we do in automation. And so it's the context of the journey that we can take them on that tends to win us the business when we're in a competitive environment. And then to get back to what you were talking about, whether it's Sage or SAP or Microsoft Dynamics, then that's not an issue for us. We extract from all systems. We have APIs into all of those systems. So oftentimes we'll be brought in by one of these resellers, a reseller of SAP, a reseller of Sage, a reseller of Microsoft, and we'll go in alongside them and we'll provide our additional services to tidy up the supplier ecosystem.
Fantastic. Okay, that's a really interesting answer. Here we go. Mark, Joe, how has trading been since listing?
So we're in a closed period. Obviously our H1 ended at the end of June. So I'm sure I'd be forgiven if I'm not giving too explicit an answer. So I suppose we haven't issued any negative notifications. So I guess that's about as much I can say on that right now. Okay.
Mohit Gadri asks quite a detailed question, but an interesting one nonetheless. At 31st December 2020, there were 6 million of bank loans. Has the IPO paid down the debt? What headroom is there? And can you provide an overview of your covenants?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. It's 5.2 and there's an exit fee of 800,000 on that. We raised 10 million sterling. So, and by the way, the interest rates on that is 12%, and we've been working with this banker for 4 years, since 2017. So the only thing I'll tell you about that, that's how strong our cash generation has been, that we were able to handle all of that. Your first question, have we paid down the debt? No, that is not our intention to pay that debt down right now. We have a lot of plans across the acquisition, the partnerships and things like that. We have a big focus on the States at the moment. The funding situation in the States is a lot cheaper and a lot bigger than it is back home. And we are working with financial houses over here, and we will refinance our debt in its entirety. And depending on what we're doing with acquisitions and such, we may refinance it in a bit of a larger scale. But even if we're doing that, well, we will be doing that. We will refinance. That's a certainty, and we'll be refinancing at a much cheaper level. But we won't, as an organization, we've been conservative all the way along. We haven't done anything crazy. We don't have a burn rate. We've always had to make money. That's how we survive. And as we grow by acquisitions and that, we don't intend that our EBITDA to debt will ever be more than 2x.
Okay, my final question to you, Maurice. You've been very patient with me so far. Organic growth versus acquisition. So what's the organic growth that you can squeeze from the business? Because I know you've got lots of recurring revenues, as you've told us, a really, really high percentage, 83% or something. So where's the organic growth going to take you next year, for example? Or do you have a run rate for that? Can you explain how that's going to build in future years? And then I'll come back to acquisitions as my final.
Yeah, so organically, we expect to be growing. We didn't factor in partnerships into this. We're testing the water on that. We've got a few coming up. So
it's going well, though. Partnerships are going well.
Partnerships are going well. We're signing them up. We still have to see the evidence of what they're driving in revenues. The forecasts look strong, but you know yourself, until you see the money, it isn't there. So leaving that aside, our organic growth is between 25-30% on the core business. On top of that will be layered the success we'll have with the partnerships, and then the acquisitions on top of that.
But acquisitions seem to do so well for you. So how many typical acquisitions do you think there are out there in your sphere?
It's a very exciting part of it, of our story. The market we work in is ripe for consolidation right now. So we would have a pipeline at any time of acquisitions that we're looking at, and there's no shortage of them, Donald. We'd eliminate 90% on the first pass. Often it's just the person you're talking to, and there's no way I'll ever get a deal done with this person. I'm not going to waste my time. We look at the profiles of the acquisitions, but there's no shortage of it. And we, particularly as we look at the States, but in EMEA as well, there is that consolidation place. So our ambition as a management team, and this is no forecast, but our ambition as a management team over the next 18 to 24 months is between all those areas of growth to get to a run rate of about $50 million revenue.
That's a lot. And so how many acquisitions could you hope to do per year over that time frame, do you think?
I reckon that every year there'll be a minimum of 2, possibly 3 acquisitions. And the acquisitions, Donald, in the way we're looking at it, we'll have similar acquisitions, I think, in the short term to the likes of JPD that we did. And every time we layer on that scale, then the acquisitions will become larger. That's our intention. That's our plan. And as I said, we have a decent pipeline. With what we raised and what we can do at the moment in short-term debt, as I said, a big part of what we're doing is maintaining those metrics of 2x post synergies in EBITDA to debt. And I think that's all very achievable for what we have in front of us at the moment.
Okay, very briefly, Anthony Collins says, this is my very, very last question. On which exchanges are you quoted? I think you quoted a name. What else are you quoted on?
That's it, just AIM.
Fantastic. Okay. Maurice, you've given a complete star. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.